Panther Luncheon begins at noon with our keynote speaker, Dr. Melanie Price of Prairie View University. Then we break into our workshop seminars, the Office of Development, compliance training for our NAA chapter presidents and treasurers, and lastly, a presentation from the PVAMU Foundation. Please don't hesitate to go near the vendors. We have our vendor market there. We also have athletics with the game tickets. They're selling game tickets for the games. Dr. Ruth J. Simmons became the 8th president of Prairie View University on July 1st, 2017. In only 2 years, we've witnessed a renaissance, a rebirth of our alma mater. She has deeply engaged with faculty, staff, students, alumni, and community members to build upon the institution's momentum. In such a short period of time, she spearheaded a massive transformation, generating substantial funding for new initiatives such as the African American Studies program, and extended the university's capacity for teaching, research, and service. I had the opportunity to meet with Texas A&M's Vice Chancellor, Dr. Hallmark, and he told me there were 3 things President Simmons promised him. I can't remember 2 of them, but there's one I do remember. He said that she promised to hire the most talented African American personnel for Prairie View, and that our students deserve that. And that held my attention. Her actions thus far for preparing students for a global economy, fostering faculty creativity, supporting staff development, conducting relevant research that impacts our region and the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President Ruth J. Simmons.
Good morning. Good morning. I had sent ahead notice that I really needed to sit down to speak, but I have run into so many of you who assure me that if I fall, you're going to rush up here and pick me up. And so I would take the risk of standing. And I remember who said that, by the way. Let me tell you what happened. We were in New York this week for a series of meetings, most of them pertinent to Prairie View. I met with donors. You know, people often say, I'll do anything, just don't have Ruth Simmons come and see me. Because there's some word out there that, you know, it'll be very uncomfortable for people when I ask for money, but it's not true. I do always ask for more. Whatever you say, I ask for more. And so you might start in a sensible place knowing that that's going to happen. But anyway, to say thank you for their generosity. But we were supposed to, James Palmer and I were to meet yesterday with the Mellon Foundation to discuss a very, very large grant that they're about to make to Prairie View. And so, but I woke up yesterday and the room was spinning around me. And I think some of you recognize what that is, but I was naturally a little terrified that I wasn't able to stand up or keep my balance very easily. And so I went to WebMD to find out what was wrong with me. But what do you do when you're traveling and that happens? I don't know. And so I learned about this condition, vertigo. and what might cause it and so forth. And since then, I've talked to a number of people who've experienced it, and they have all kinds of suggestions about things that could be done to address it. So I was most afraid that I would not be able to make the plane last night. So happily I made it, thanks to my daughter. I want to thank her for getting me here. You know, she did an incredible job. She contacted the airlines. She told them what they needed to do, to make sure I could get here, and everything worked really beautifully. So welcome again back to Houston. I don't know how you found this place. I'm a Houstonian. I had no idea it was here. But it's a beautiful venue. Thank you so much for meeting here again. And of course, what I want to do is to provide a bit of an update on what's happening at the university, especially in view of the news that we got last year from our accrediting agency that, just in case. Okay, thank you. Oh, nice, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. That we were being placed on probation for systemic problems in the processing of financial aid. First, let me start with accreditation. In the spring, I wrote to the campus explaining changes that we've made to strengthen our compliance with the standards of our various oversight authorities, of which I hope you know there are many. Do you realize how many agencies and authorities we answer to? It is extraordinary to me, having been in higher education all of my career. I've never seen so many. But we have a lot of them, and we have to respond to the directions that they give us about how we should be carrying out our work. These agencies include, of course, the System Office, the Board of Regents, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, the TEA, the regional accrediting agencies, SAC, COC, and beyond them, numerous national and federal organizations that keep track of university practices and outcomes, especially the Department of Education. And I think you know that failure to comply with standards and requirements set by these various agencies can result in a range of penalties, including closure of programs, fines, decertification, loss of financial support, debarment, and worst of all, loss of accreditation, which is the life source of legitimacy in the world of higher education. In that communication that I sent to the campus, I described a number of things that we're doing pertinent to the finding of SAC's COC. First, we appointed a vice president for enrollment management, Serena Phillips. I don't know if Serena's not here. To provide closer supervision and coordination of admission, financial aid, and the registrar's office. Now here's the thing. You can hear this from any student at any time. It's one thing to go to university and to learn and to prepare yourself for a profession. That people understand. What they don't understand is why it should be so difficult to find out what kind of financial aid you're getting, whether you can afford to go to college, to enroll, to actually go through the enrollment process, and so on. Those bureaucratic things, people don't understand why that should be so hard. And it shouldn't be. So we have to bear down and do everything possible to make that part of it as easy as possible. But to do that, we need the cooperation of all of the people who have inputs into that system. So, for example, people apply, but they may omit certain documents that are required. And in their minds, it's not a big deal. It's not a big document. And so if they can't get it, what's the point? We're supposed to be the place that makes it easy and comfortable for people to enroll. So why are we holding them to that standard? It was pretty simple, because our agencies that monitor us do not permit us to willy-nilly change requirements, stated requirements. And so if we require one thing and decide, oh, we're gonna let it go this time, that's not gonna work, okay? So we jeopardize the accreditation and the approval of our programs anytime we depart from those requirements. And it's very hard for families and students to understand that, especially in the area of financial aid. Now, why did financial aid land us in this predicament? Putatively, because of lacks in the verification process. Well, that sounds like so much mumbo-jumbo to the average person. But what does it mean? Okay, so I'm a parent. My child is going to go to Prairie View. I have to fill out a form, a FAFSA, and then I've got to send in my tax returns. But let's say I'm divorced. And part of the issue has to do with funds that I'm receiving. And I don't have the proper paperwork to demonstrate what I am getting by way of income. We don't have the latitude to take anybody's word for anything when you're dealing with the federal government. You file taxes, you know this, right?
Right.
Okay, so we are audited constantly. And the auditors come in, and this is the beauty of SACS accreditation and auditors. Because how many people have been audited by the, okay, some people wouldn't even admit that comment, so you probably shouldn't have raised your hand at the head of development. You know that, that auditors come in and they just pick. And so when they come in and they happen to pick a record and they see that something is represented in the record, but there's no evidence supporting it in the way that is required, okay? So the verification process is something we're supposed to do. We go back to records to make sure that all of the information on which we are basing financial aid is accurate. And if we don't go back and do that properly, then that's obviously something that is a serious problem. The problem is, this has been going on for a very long time. And the reason we ended up on probation is because it had been going on so long and had not been addressed. And therefore, the letter, the finding, noted systemic issues in financial aid, systemic issues. So, what does that mean when somebody tells you that your whole process is broken and has been broken for a period of time? What do you have to do? Well, you have to blow it up. So, Serena is involved in blowing up that whole organization and trying to make sure that we are processing correctly. She is over the registrar's office, financial aid, and admission, which work so closely together. And all of those offices are about record keeping and record verification. You know, my first job ever in higher education was in admission. And I have to say that one of the things that was a very interesting job to begin with, because in admission, this was in the admission office at Harvard-Radcliffe, in the admission process, you have to make sure that everything you have found and everything that you assert is backed up by the file. So I learned early on, when I was still a graduate student, to see records in a very particular light. And that has helped a lot. And if you're in higher education, it's very, very good to have that perspective. So here's some of the things that Serena Phillips, Dr. Phillips, is doing. She is now searching for a director of financial aid. And we are blessed to have an interim director, Charlene Irvin, who is just fantastic. And I think it's safe to say we'd love it if she would stay, but she doesn't live in Texas and apparently doesn't want to live in Texas. She commutes from Atlanta. Atlanta over to Texas? Oh, okay. All right, fine. But we are doing a national search for a director. We are currently outsourcing the verification process, which has been our Achilles heel, leading us to into probationary status. But here's the thing, we can't outsource forever. We have to know how to do it properly. And how do we do that? We have to have qualified people doing it, and we have to train them properly.
Yes.
So Charlene is very much involved in training the staff to make sure they understand how to do this. And those who are not trainable are being redirected to something else. I explained that during this process, we're waiting to see whether or not we can save our status as an accredited institution, that we are asking James Palmer to remain in the provost role so that we can go through that entire process without change in leadership. The president of Sac CRC, I asked her in a meeting we had last year, what would she recommend that we do in terms of leadership during this period, and that's what she said. Don't make any changes in that regard. I would say that one of the things I've harped on most since I came to Prairie View is that many of the issues we face are because of structural inefficiencies. One of the things I wanted to do is to restructure in a way that would enable us to do the job that we are called on to do. And one of the most important things we have to do is get our students through. The non-completion rate at Prairie View is something that we must all feel pain about. Every young person who has the potential to complete a college education and who fails to do so because of something we are not doing should wound us deeply. Our community cannot afford it. Every child has to be saved. Every child. So as I thought about what's missing in terms of what other universities do so beautifully in regard to their students, I thought that we don't have a dean of undergraduate studies. And so we created that position, dean of undergraduate studies. And what does a dean of undergraduate studies do? They worry endlessly about the welfare of the academic enterprise for our undergraduates. If you've got a bad teacher, who cares about that? The undergraduate dean. If you've got a poor sequence of courses where students are saying, I can't possibly finish in 4 years because the way that the courses are put together, they don't match up and I can't finish. Who cares about that? The undergraduate dean. If something has gone awry in a department and the department is rotten to the core, and the students keep saying, this department is terrible. They don't care about us. The courses are not very good. The faculty are not qualified. Who cares about that? The undergraduate dean. So this is a person who has the portfolio to dig into the quality of our undergraduate degree and to tackle problems that arise. And so I'm very excited about that. That position reports to the provost, and he is probably going to mention it Are you going to mention that? Are you making a remark? Okay, you are, okay. So I won't say any more about that, except how excited I am that finally we are in line with our peers in offering to our students a person to whom they can go to improve the quality of their programs. Now, the provost does a lot of different things. And some of those things he has no business doing. He's heard all this, it's okay. So, what happens when a provost is doing the little things that others should be doing? What happens is the big things don't get done. So what is a provost? A provost is the chief academic officer of a university, and they are the dreamers, they are the pushers of new ideas, they are the strategists, they are looking for where the university ought to go and paying attention to what everybody else is doing. Well, that university over there has created this new program, and it looks like they're going to be taking off, and they're attracting a lot of students. Who's supposed to do that? The provost. Reviewing programs. We have a team of people come in to review a program, and they say, well, this program is really, it's no good. Who's supposed to fix that? The provost. So what I wanted to do is to make sure that we find a way to attend to those small things, because how can we be a university where none of the big things get done? We can't. Not and survive and thrive. We cannot. And so James and I have this discussion all the time, and whenever I think he's paying attention to something that really shouldn't be on his plate, I tell him right away. To his distress. We also, I've appointed a person in my office who is going to help us, who has accreditation experience, who is going to help us during this period of time leading up to the accreditation decision, be a liaison to make sure that all of the strategic things that we are doing between the provost's office and my office get done. And Beverly happens to be here today, and I want to introduce her. You can stand up. Dr. Copeland is such an extraordinary individual. She has most recently been the chair of the Faculty Senate. Now, here's what I said. No, you can't sit down. You can't sit down. So here's the thing. I think I said this to you last year. My job is to think about all the components that make universities great and bring them to bear at Prairie View. One of the essential components is the faculty involvement in decision making. Now, I have to be honest with you, it's a nuisance to have faculty tell you what to do. It is. But you can't have a good university without it. And one of the things when I invited the faculty to learn how to be a partner in the decision-making process, I'm delighted that Beverly took that on, took it seriously, and went to work looking at what other university faculties do. How do they behave? What does the AAUP suggest that we do in terms of what faculty role should be? And she put that together, and she led the faculty as chair of the Senate, and did a wonderful job. Thank you so much for what you've done, and I really look forward to working with you on this new project. Thank you. You're going to notice some changes, some of which you won't be happy with. And that has to do with our trying to address the quality issues. Are you going to talk about enrollment and the requirements for admission?
I
You hadn't planned on it?
But I can.
Okay, well, it's a very unpleasant subject, so you wanted me to touch on it? Or, but you can do it. Okay, well then you do it. Okay, listen. People, Maya, what are you doing? Do not take me, okay? My daughter's back there taping me. Don't do that. Okay. We have this beautiful romantic idea. It's more than romantic. It's really a compelling idea that you can go into any community and you can take rough gems and you can turn them into brilliant scholars. I think that's my story, actually. And so the idea that you would actually set any standards for people to apply is antithetical to many people, to what we should be doing. But we have instituted a somewhat higher GPA requirement because we had runaway admission that caused enormous public relations problems and campus problems for us. So many students that we could not accommodate with housing, with financial aid, with advising, the gamut. And these stories have been published widely. And everywhere I go in Houston, people say, well, how is that problem that you're having, with housing and so forth? This is a strong deterrent to students in the future who might come to Prairie View. So we know we've got to solve these problems first before we invite young people into an environment where they suffer because we are not prepared. And so you will hear complaints from prospective students who did not meet the threshold to get in. But here's the reason. We are a state university. We have very little latitude in admission. Now, this is the way a private university can do pretty much anything they want to do in admission. Student comes along, they have a compelling case, you can admit them. State university has a very narrow pathway where they have to qualify. And if they don't qualify, you can't admit. And so we have changed admission requirements, and we've changed the deadline for applying. It used to be people could apply to Prairie View until, what, August? The day before classes. Come on. Who can prepare if you're applying that late? So there's some rigor being added to this system where people are going to feel that it's much tighter for them. You're going to hear that. But if we do well, that means we'll have greater capacity in the end for the wonderful young people that we want to serve. But we have to do it right. So I think you're going to get an update on housing. Honestly, if you've been to Prairie View recently and you see all the housing going up, it's probably confusing to you. So we're going to have an update on that. So back to let's see, where was that? Housing. Okay. So I know everybody's interested in African American studies and where that stands.
Yes.
Okay. So let me first explain that African American Studies is an initiative. Okay. Now there are a lot of things that you do when you've got regulators that you to advance your agenda. And the one thing you can't do is you can't go out and create a program. The state doesn't allow us to do that. Okay, we've got to go through hoops to get anything approved, any change approved. And they have to agree that it's worthy. Okay? So, how do we get around that? Well, we said we have an African American Studies initiative underway. We didn't ask for permission for this, we didn't have to. We got outside funding from the Mellon Foundation to do it, $500,000. And so here's how we started this initiative. Our goal is to make sure that the people teaching at Prairie View who don't have any idea about African American history and culture get some education to make sure that at propitious moments they can include material in their courses that is relevant to the lives of their students. The sad situation, really, that we have to do that, but we do have to do it, okay? And so we have these consultants coming, these people coming to lecture, and we're doing two things. We're introducing them to the whole of the community. So if Cornell West comes, he lectures to anybody who wants to hear him. Okay, so, but at the same time, the idea is for scholars to come and to meet with faculty also, to make sure that they get better informed about what it is that we should be teaching. This is probably the most painful thing for me when I came to Prairie View, because first of all, I just didn't get it. How can you be an African American institution and you don't offer African American studies? Is that a self-hatred thing? What is that? It is? Well, but it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. So you've got all these universities across the country, and in Japan, and in Germany, and in Sweden, and in France, teaching African American studies. But when you come to the source, there is silence. So we're going to have African American studies. We begin with this initiative, and then it's going to segue into a program of study where students who want to concentrate in it can. Okay? Now, as parents, this is what I hear from parents all the time. Well, I mean, if they major in African American studies, what are they going to do with it? I mean, that doesn't lead to a job. As a community, we have to be better informed. Okay? And I chide parents who say things like that. Because our job is to uplift our culture and history and to make sure that people understand, well, if you can concentrate in American history, if you can concentrate in English, if you can concentrate in anthropology, if you can concentrate in all those component pieces, and you'll be fine. You can also concentrate in Afro-American studies and be fine. Okay? There is not, as far as I have seen in my career, any reason that somebody couldn't concentrate in Afro-American studies. But the main thing is, I don't care what your concentration is. If you're an engineer and you don't know where you came from and how you came to be who you are, you still need some Afro-American studies. So that, and by the way, that's true for everybody. It's not just true for African Americans. When Cornell West was lecturing to big classes, most of his students were white. Whites, Hispanics, and others need to know about African American culture too, and that's why the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture is inundated with people who want to visit it because they know they need to understand it also. Ken, wave your hand when it gets to the point where I'm just, going on too long. Okay. We have a schedule of development for the program, and Melanie is going to talk about that today sometime. And by the way, she's terrific. Terrific. Now, here's the other thing that I found when I came up in here. I go to Prairie View people, I say, Prairie View is terrific. Why did you come back to Prairie View? And they said, I'm not coming back to Prairie View. What? So what I thought, well, we need great faculty. There are great faculty out there who were educated in Prairie View. So the easiest way to start is just go to them and say, come on back, right?
Right.
So I went to Melanie, I said, Melanie, you publish these books, you're a tenured professor at Rutgers, Prairie View could really use you, and so forth. No, I don't think so. But it took a bit to get her here. Mostly her mother. Her mother's here in Houston. That's a wonderful thing. So we're grateful to Mom for getting Melanie back here. But as I told her mom, Melanie is living with her mom. I told her mom, Melanie makes enough money. You need to get her to move out of the house and get her own house. And so I'm going to work on that too. Mom's got to get her out of there. So a final thing I'm just going to say, then I'm going to wait for questions. Just in the coming year, we're going to undertake a targeted campaign to further build capacity for Prairie View in a few critical areas. Those critical areas are primarily financial aid. Our students are desperately in need of more financial aid. I am so surprised often by the fact that students have to leave school because they can't come up with $200. It's shocking, the divide in this country. They have no one to help them. There's no family that can rescue them. There are no friends who have money. They can't get a loan. They are bereft of help. We need to step into that void for these students, some of whom, of course, come out of foster care. The best thing that we do, by the way, is put our arms around young people. That's the best thing we do. Because so many of them have nothing. They have no one. And when they come to us, the one thing we have to do is give them that touch, that human touch, that tie. The system, of course, tells us, you can't touch students. You're not supposed to don't put your hand on anybody. They don't understand. So we try to help our students. So when you read about that in the newspaper, keep that in mind. It's a parental hub. Right? We love our students. So we're going to be looking for especially two categories of support: corporate support and expanded foundation relationships. Okay? We're looking for very, very significant sized gifts for the university. And it's most likely that we're going to find that in the corporate and foundation world. We already have some underway, and we think that we're going to be able to have a good bit of luck with those. A few new things. I'm delighted that we are doing so well in some of the new areas of research. it's just amazing to me that Prairie View would be at the leading edge in AI. It's just such a delightful thing that that faculty at MIT would be using Prairie View algorithms. Doesn't that give you a shiver down your back? Doesn't it? So we're getting, our faculty are doing well in terms of attracting very important grants. We have great relationships with leading companies that help to fund our research. We're going to be building a new engineering building, and we will be looking for a major funder for the new engineering building. Now, Texas A&M said, well, no, we're going to see about that, because we're going to have, not Texas A&M, the system. We're going to come down there, and we're going to do an audit to see if you really need this building. I'm going to tell you, they don't give us this building. It's going to be hell in the pay.
I know that's right.
So we need this building. I'm sorry for using that word.
That's all right.
My parents would never allow us to say words like that. Now, my father would get up and preach and use hell all the time, but if we said hell, okay. We have a new meat lab coming up. We're going to be doing the groundbreaking for that very soon. When's that coming up? Wednesday? Okay. We also have a proposal from the chancellor of the system. You know, Chancellor Sharp is very devoted to Prairie View. But one of the things that he has come up with is he thinks that we should use our extension program, our criminal justice program, our nursing program, and our ag program to offer a healthy Texas initiative in the inner city in Houston. Isn't that, I can't believe it. I mean, it's a perfectly brilliant idea. Which means we would go into places like, who's that? Where's that third ward person?
Here we go.
Oh, okay. Not third ward, but fifth ward. So we would go into fifth ward, Hester House, and set up shop. We would do health screenings, give advice to seniors about diet and diabetes. We would plant more urban gardens. We would talk to youth and parents about delinquency and things like that, and offer a wonderful, comprehensive program in the communities. I think it's a wonderful idea. So they're prepared to give us funds to do that, and we are talking about how we can get that going. You know, Beverly is somebody in my office. It's very awkward now with her there because she's always talking about healthy stuff, and you know, surveying what we're doing and what we're eating in the office, but you can leave that aside and bring your other good pointers. The Mellon Foundation, we have a big initiative that's probably going to be announced around mid-September. Did you see my email on this from the president of Spelman?
Yes.
Okay, so we started at Prairie View a faculty development initiative that I talked to you about before, last year, which is to give our faculty access to the resources they need to develop their scholarship and so forth. And so then Spelman and Morehouse followed this. I wrote a proposal for them to get more resources to help build their faculties. So now 3 foundations have gotten together and they've decided that they're going to do a program for that models faculty development. for HBCUs. And they are wanting to announce it on September the 15th? 15th. So you may see that in the news that Prairie View, as well as Spelman and Morehouse, have been given $1 million each to launch this program of faculty development. Now, this is important because if it goes well, then it moves across HBCUs to do what we have been needing to do for a long time, and that is support faculty in HBCUs at an appropriate level so that the quality of education we deliver to our students will be equal to what is available to other students in other universities. We have received incremental funding for criminal justice this year through the legislative session, and that is going to be wonderful for criminal justice to be able to do expand its programs in the coming year. We're very, very happy about that. We did not get the match we wanted for the agriculture funding, and that's caused a lot of concern. But in the next legislative session, we have to see if we can go and do that. So I think I'll stop there and take questions. We'd be happy to take your questions, and we have enough people here that I think somebody should be able to answer. Yes?
Given that there is a change at the university in terms of admission requirements, could it be that we're at a point in our history where the fact that Prairie View served a compensatory education function at one point might be over? Question number one. Number two, given that we have research as one of our many things at Prairie View, is there a chance that there's a compendium of research projects in which we're involved, and if any of these research projects are being actualized in terms of state-of-the-art type of practice, given the algorithm developed for at whatever
MIT. Artificial intelligence. Obviously, given our mission, our research is really intended to be to have applications. So that's where it's headed, inevitably. And in order for us to actually get funded on most of these research projects, part of the application says how, in fact, the research is going to be used, how it's going to be applied. So that's part of the effort. We don't actually do anything, check me on this, James, in a pure research category. Because for the most part, the funding that we seek wouldn't pay for pure research because of our mission, not because we can't do it, but because of our mission as a university, as a land grant university. So I think that comes inevitably. So you get Dr. Saganti's research, for example, and the work that he does that gets him into a space launch. Okay, so and our partners, remember, are profoundly interested in applied research. So the Department of the Navy, the Department of the Army, NASA, Google, these are all places that want us to do research in order to serve some particular use or some particular application. But to the first part of your question, there is a feeling among some in education that you should do one or the other. I've never believed that because I've seen that it simply isn't true. You can bring people in who don't even have the requirements, let's say, for admission, who can become brilliant theorists and practitioners. The fact that people are stuck in certain schools or stuck in an economic category where they cannot get the kind of preparation, pre-college preparation, should not consign them for their entire lives to not living out their dreams. So I would hope that Prairie View never becomes a place that is only about the people who come with the perfect records. We have to find a way, and I believe a way can be found, to make sure that there's an avenue for people who don't present that, okay? We have a couple of kids coming in the fall. One is 9 years old, and one is 11 or 13, and one is 12. They are children of Prairie View parents who homeschool them. And I believe that at least one of them graduated, got a high school diploma, and at the same time graduated from community college. I think that's the 13-year-old. I just want to know what you people were doing when you were there. I think there are going to be tons of articles on these kids. I worry about them because it's pretty clear that they are exceptional, brilliant children. But I want to see the kids who come along who don't even know that they have that kind of potential. And I want to see that. I want us to stoke it in young people and have them wake up to what they can do because of learning. If we lose that, in my view, we lose a lot. And so finding ways to make sure that we have policies that permit that, I would say that's all important. And by the way, this temporary problem of not being ready for the number of students that we have is a temporary problem. I think we would want to be as large as we could be to help as many students as we can. And the thing is that we've got to get to the point where we can manage all of that and help those students. I think there are a lot of outreach programs that we're not doing that we could do also. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. One thing I've noticed, just through my life, just the wisdom I've gained, there's people who are givers, right? And I think Prairie View needs to start looking for students who are giving, people who volunteer, even at the high school level. Those people are going to be more likely, those going to donate to the university, their time and their money. So when you go looking academically, include that as well. I think that should be included. Another thing I've noticed that if you want people who are going to be life changers, we need to look for people who are going to take risks, right? Those students who are in high school starting businesses, starting nonprofit or profit businesses, right? We need those type of students at our universities. They're going to be life changers for the Black community, and what better place for them to start is at an HBCU. And hopefully would you consider such a thing as including those things when you look for students?
We can talk a bit, maybe James, you can talk a bit about what the state allows us to consider. I'm absolutely 100% with you on what you said. And there is room to consider other qualities, let's say. But I think you know that this issue is about to go to the Supreme Court. The Harvard admission case is not just about race. It's also about whether or not all these different qualities that universities say they should be looking at are valid, and whether or not they should be overturned. So we are in a bit of a murky space anyway right now because of the admission. Everybody knows that that's going to the Supreme Court. and everybody is very tentative about these kinds of requirements. But here's the kind of thing you can do. You can create programs that lead into that. So if you wanted to create a program where you looked for those young people and you brought them in and you observed them yourself and you assessed them yourself and you added that to the admission process, that would be perfectly legitimate to do under the law. Perfectly legitimate to do. So the short answer is, I agree with you, that's very important. And there are ways to do that in the admission process, no matter what happens with the Supreme Court case. Yes, sir.
Good morning, my name is Robert Evans, I'm a Fort Worth alumni, and from the months of June to August, I get a lot of phone calls because they're trying to call for a review. They can't catch nobody, so they call me, and I'm like, I don't really know answers. But it has to do with American colleges, and that is the third party that owns the dormitories at Prairie View, correct? Campus.
That's close enough.
Very campus, okay. And so what's happening is the third party system is difficult for some parents, and so they can't get the answer they're looking for, or they can't get an answer at all. So, you know, they tend to start calling alumni to see what we can do, and I'm like, well, I'm not really involved with that. But I know that's challenging, and I don't know how long our commitment is with them, and how long is the commitment here? And is there a renewal period? Do we have to keep them because we have their real estate on our property? And how can they get a better response to the parents?
We have that's not the only one that we have this issue with. Okay, so you know, it's really been eye-opening to me, having been president of two places where I just got to make decisions about what I was going to do. Being part of a system is very different. Everything you do like that goes to the Board of Regents. Okay. These partnerships that result in contracts, large contracts, these are all system reviewed. We went to the board last year with a proposal to build a building that had been developed over how long period of time, Corey? Years?
5 years.
About 5 years, to get this building approved. And the Board of Regents didn't like it. They didn't agree that the partnership that we had established, or the providers that we had involved in this project were appropriate, and so they wouldn't approve it. So keep in mind always that when it comes to things that we have to do, we have a system involved, and we have a Board of Regents involved. Okay, so now let me talk about American. Well, do you want to talk about that?
I will. Yeah, I will actually in my presentation.
Okay,
Yes.
so Tim's going to talk about that in his presentation. I believe that we are underserved by most of the associations that we have with these entities.
True. True. True.
But that doesn't mean we can go out tomorrow and change it. Because of the situation that we're in. We're not an independent university. Some things we just don't get to decide, okay? Now, I should tell you that they are now building the next phase of housing at Prairie View. And it's the one thing about the third parties is they don't really have to care. Their reputation is not directly on the line. They don't have to answer parents and students. They don't have a stake in it the way that we do. And so the problem is when you go into a relationship with a vendor, you have to be aware that that person is probably not going to be the frontline person. And they're not going to care as much about the provision. But here's the other side of it. everybody who comes to our campus, everybody who's familiar with the world of higher education, let's say, and with HBCUs in particular, when they come to our campus, they're floored. The first thing they say is how beautiful it is. It is unquestionably the case. Had we not used these resources, we would not have the campus that we have today. There's no question about it. I was a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, in Atlanta, and the president of Morehouse asked, to meet with me. And it had been a while since I'd been to Morehouse, but in going to his office, I have to say I was thunderstruck by the difference in that campus and Prairie View. It is very, very hard to maintain a campus of our size and our scope of programs and so forth with the quality of what you see on that campus. And some of that is because we have a system that uses certain people, and because of that, we can gain access to certain providers who make that possible. But it is a double-edged sword, I would say. So luckily, Tim Sams has taken over policy with regard to housing. And so you will now be able to send them all to him.
One last question. Is there one last question?
This is a question of our Facebook Live feed.
Okay.
Coming from Tony Young. He asked, with the new GPA requirements, will total enrollment be decreasing?
Oh, I meant to say that our enrollment, be prepared, our enrollment in the fall is down, okay? There are a number of factors involved in that. One is because of I went to the coordinating board last year, because Texas has a mandate for us. And their mandate is grow, 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 grow. Just keep growing, because they have a certain goal in mind for all of these institutions. But they're not thinking about whether or not the students have enough financial aid. They're not thinking about whether or not there's actually any housing. They're not thinking about whether there are courses in place for it. So we went to the coordinating board and said we were growing too fast. Okay? And our growth in the way we're growing ignores quality programs, ignores the experience of the individual student and whether or not we're doing our best for those students. And so we asked to reduce the rate of growth for Prairie View. That doesn't mean that in the end we want to be as large as we can be. But we don't want to sacrifice students in the interim by growing too quickly. So, but one of the reasons that we are down, graduate school enrollment is down because of the School of Education and problems that they've had, and we've had to stop admission to certain graduate programs in education because of problems there. On the undergraduate side, that reduction is deliberate to give us a chance to offer the kinds of the quality of programs that we're going to be able to offer. You cannot have too many more news stories about the problems at Prairie View and expect that we're going to continue to raise our reputation. It's not going to happen. Problems have to be addressed. They have to be. Students used to come to me and say, Ruth, I think we ought to be doing this, and we ought to be doing that, and why do we have to have all of these requirements, and so forth. And so I said, well, we can do all of that and more, but not if you want an accredited degree. Some things have to be done well enough for the people who I started off by talking about the people who come and review us. Now, I've chaired reviews for other universities. Okay? And when we come in to review universities, we review it with the issue of whether or not the students are being well served by the policies and practices and facilities that are in place. That's what you do. So we have got to get on top of this problem, and that's, I think, a good way to do it, is to really be much more prudent in the way we grow. So thank you for that question from online.
Last one.
Stephen Kennedy, Austin, Texas. First of all, I'd like to just say, Dr. Simmons, thank you for accepting this position and leading this university. I think it's important to certainly say it to you at any opportunity, all opportunities, probably. My question is this. In 2019, U.S. News and World Report ranked a total of 76 HBCUs in their institutional quality and success measures. PV were ranked nationally 230 and exclusively number 20 in the HBCU polls. Is this something that we should be working to improve or acceptable for us, or is this something that maybe we need to get out of?
Well, we can't get out of it. We're going to be rated no matter what. So let me talk about ratings. Thank you for raising that. It's usually within the alumni group of any university, that is usually the first question. How we're ranked and what we can do about it. And most places spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with this question, unless you're number one. So I was on the board of Princeton, and they were number one, and they didn't have any discussion about it. I was on the board of Rice University, and they talked about it all the time. What can we do? What can we tweak to make sure that our ranking goes up? Doesn't matter. Well, here's what we ought to be able to do. If we're a first-class institution, your degree should get more and more valuable as you proceed. Okay? So what I'd like for you to be able to say is that, oh my goodness, I would never be able to go to Prairie View today, because the quality is such that I probably wouldn't be able to manage it. So that's what people love to do. Most alumni love to say that. Oh my goodness, you know about my university. It's so great. I couldn't go there today. And so on. But luckily, we don't take degrees away once you've gotten them. So, but the value of it should be such that we're making it better in every generation, and that's where you come in. And that's why I say you can tell how good a university is going to be by the quality of involvement of alumni at that university. Because the vigilant alumni around the country who press universities to do better and better and better, make their universities better, you cannot go to sleep. And so when you ask, why on earth are we rated below these institutions, that is the most important thing for you to be asking. Believe me. And then you need to look into why. Are we spending resources inappropriately? Easy for a university to do. So last year, what did we do? We said, wait a minute. We're not spending any money helping our faculty to become better faculty. We will never improve our ranking unless our faculty are rated better. Because you know the single biggest factor in the rating of a university is its faculty. So what if you don't spend any money making your faculty great? recruiting the best faculty, making sure that they're visible on the national scene, making sure that you are saying to them, it's not enough for you to come in here every day with yellowing notes. You have to get out there and do some work, because our students are preparing for the future, and your old notes are about the past. So you better be involved in learning about where the field is today. So all of these things are a part of the focus. And so what was the first thing that we did? First thing we did was to set aside $2 million for this purpose. And that's why these foundations are now funding faculty development. And that's why they're focused on trying to do this at HBCUs. Because they know, they always knew that the issue was faculty development. But they said nothing because, well, you know, it might hurt their feelings, it's the HBCUs, they may think it's racist if we say that they're underperforming and so forth. But as soon as we say, we know we're underperforming, they're right there with the help to do what needs to be done. So, again, in that list, let me just tell you the things that matter in rankings. The percentage of alumni who give, the faculty output, prizes and awards that students get, the size of classes, okay? If you decided tomorrow that, well, you know, it would be very efficient, why don't we just put more people in a classroom? And then it would be cheaper. Yes, it would be cheaper, but your rankings would go down. Because the assessment of the U.S. News and World Report is all about the attention you're paying to your student. What is the faculty-student ratio? What is the size of classes? Okay? These are the ways that the rankings come about. But mostly through the work that your faculty do, the output of the faculty. And there are indexes that exist that will tell you what the productivity of your faculty is. How many are writing books, how many are publishing in refereed journals. So it's a very complex set of things, but here's some of the things we're working on that will help, okay? I've forgotten one important thing, is what people think of you. That's the thing. So the survey goes around, and people ask, what are the universities that you think are the best universities? It goes to presidents, it goes to provosts. How far down does it go? That's the only two? So the presidents and provosts get to judge. Well, what if you haven't heard about anything happening at Prairie View that's particularly outstanding? Are you going to put Prairie View on your list? Probably not. So, public relations is very important. You want to get in front of people as often as possible with the things that you're doing, like algorithms that are being used prominently in AI. Those are the kinds of things. So research is publishing information and distributing information about the research that's going on. Every time you get an award, you have to publish that. Every time something positive happens at the university, you have to publish that. And that's why, when I was on the board at RISE, the public relations people are saying, well, it's so expensive to produce this magazine for RISE. We don't want to produce this magazine anymore. So they came to the board with the recommendation to eliminate that magazine because it was too expensive. Typical kind of decision made in universities that are bad ideas. So it came to the board, and the board said, oh, okay. I said, oh no. Let me tell you why you can't eliminate that magazine. Because that magazine gets mailed out to every peer university president's office. And it's unlikely that that president is going to read that magazine through and through. But that president is probably going to flip through it. And that may be the most information that that university gets about what you're doing in a given year. It has a huge impact on the opinion survey that is done. And why do you think Spelman is a good college? Because you hear about it all the time, right? It does happen to be true. But you hear about it all the time. But why is Spelman such a good college? Just think about it. Can you think of 2 reasons that you think it is? Give me 2 reasons you think it is.
Faculty-student ratio.
Faculty-student ratio, it's small. Alumni. Fierce, those Spelman women. I mean, they have been in there for the duration, okay? Constantly involved. Constantly involved. But you also know about it because of the faculty. When I went to Spelman as provost, that was my job, is to bring that faculty development to Spelman. And that was 25 years ago. They have seen the benefits of that now. Because you have to stay on it, supporting the faculty, making sure that they're good. And when they're not good, you have to get rid of them. Okay? And we have a tendency, we are so charitable and lovely people. We do not like to get rid of people. And that's very nice. It is, it's very nice. But you'll never have a good university if you're organized on that basis. You have to let people go when they are not performing. And what is the most important area of performance? It's not what we do. It's in that classroom. It's in that classroom. Every year, I go back to visit my high school teacher, Vernell. You know why I do? Because her impact on me in the classroom led me to a career and to what I do today. That's why. So the impact of that professor in the classroom on young people, it's been shown repeatedly. You talk to anybody who's been to college, and they're going to cite the influence of professors. Anybody. So that's the place where we have to do our best work. That comes number 1, where we do our best work. How good are the courses? How good are the faculty? How good is the research? And that profile is what takes you to the next level. So I would say today we're working on all the factors that help drive the rankings up. And if we could, where should Prairie View be today?
On top. On top.
Where?
Number one.
Well, there you are. If you believe that and you act on it, then Prairie View will be number 1. So I'll always say there's no reason that I can see that Prairie View shouldn't be the number 1 HBCU in the country. There is no existing impediment to that. You know what the impediment is? Us.
That's right.
We're the impediment.
That's right.
Making the wrong decisions. Being afraid to take risks, being afraid to make the call to disrupt things when they're not functioning correctly, being afraid to tell the truth about what we're not doing well enough. We're the impediment to Prairie View being number 1. But we're going to be better. There's no question about that. The question of how fast we get there is the only question. But remember, that only happens with all of you involved. Just like the faculty have to be a part of that, helping to make those decisions, you've got to be on top of it. You've got to be on top of the people running this university. Not me. Just joking. You have to be alert. Okay? There is no reason. I heard when I first came to Prairie, we can't recruit. It's very hard. We don't pay enough. We can't recruit. That's not true. It's absolutely untrue. Prairie View can compete much better than Spelman can, because Prairie View has more money. And the big benefit to Prairie View is that it's in this system, which makes it one of the best funded universities, HBCUs, in the country. Okay? Look at the problems that Howard is having. Look at the problems that Morehouse and Spelman are having. Financially. We don't have those problems. We can finance what we need to finance. Okay? So what we got to get better at is making the decisions, being smart about it. So what we're doing is we're going out across the country and we're asking what other people are doing. Well, what are you doing? Okay? You can't live in a hole and think you're going to be the best possible university. You have to know what everybody else is doing. So I always say, if you don't know how to do it, go somewhere where it's being done well and find out how to do it. So I know I'm getting the sign. I thank you so much. Yes.
One quick question, and I hope you're able to answer it fairly quickly. A lot of what you just answered in that last question, Bill, on that, especially yourself. Mark made a presentation to us yesterday relative to our NAA organization working together with the university. And the proposal had a lot of points in it. We are looking forward to working with the university a lot better. What are your thoughts on how we can work as a National Alumni Association with the university based on Mark's proposal?
Well, I didn't see Mark's proposal, but let me tell you what my thoughts about
Good.
About that. You know, thank you so much. You know, I would say to the senior staff, if you keep your eye on what we're here to do, it's almost impossible to go awry, right? And so what we're here to do is to prepare these generations of youth for many things. Certainly, yes, to innovate, to support their communities, to be thoughtful, caring human beings. To create new things, and to speak truth to power. We want them so secure in who they are that no one can turn them around. That is the biggest gift probably we can give our students. Now, if we keep our eye on that, to me, it's an easy thing. What I ask is, what do I need to do? How do I need to work with you? I'm not competing with you because it's not about you and it's not about me, it's about those students. Amen. That's what it's about. So in that regard, the National Alumni Association, please hear me on this, is so vital to keeping us honest.
That's right.
Okay? And the reason for that is you have to have an external, objective view on what's happening in a university. Because universities, like any other institution, can become corrupt. Corrupt in terms of thinking about the wrong things. Corrupt in terms of changing the mission in inappropriate ways. Corrupt in terms of not doing enough in this area or that area. And so this whole issue of governance happens to be the single most important thing that we can do. And that means we've got to have bodies, different bodies across the breadth of the university, bringing different perspectives to bear so that in the end we get better decisions. Because it is all about the decisions we make. all about that. The decision not to fire the financial aid director whom we should. Where has that landed us? Okay, it's all about the decisions that we make. So we have to be good at making decisions. And governance is all about inputs that help us make the right decisions. So ideally, that means that we will help the National Alumni Association with its tasks and not require it to agree with us on everything. Okay? That's the most pernicious thing about institutions, is the idea that everybody should agree with you. Why is that possible? I think if that were the case, I certainly would not be standing here today, because I have disagreed in every institution I've been a part of. I have been a disagreeable voice. But institutions that are strong enough can tolerate that, and it makes them stronger. I told a story recently to someone that when I was at Princeton and Harold Shapiro was appointed president of Princeton, I was asked to meet with him to tell him about African Americans at Princeton. And I said, absolutely not. They said, why not? I said, I'm not your Negro to tell people, to explain African Americans. That's not my job. And so I refused to meet with him and talk about that. When Princeton came to me and said, would you be the head of the Afro-American Studies program? I said, how dare you? How dare you ask me to direct Afro-American Studies when you know I'm not qualified to do it? I mean, I'm a French person. I don't know anything about Afro-American Studies, I said. How dare you? And the fact that you asked me to do it says to me you care nothing for Afro-American Studies. And I will not do it. So that helped Princeton a lot to say those things, okay? Because they ended up with, well, they ultimately convinced me to direct it, but for a price, which is to bring in people like Toni Morrison and Nell Painter and others. So it ended up helping that I was candid with. So we need you to be candid. We need you to push back when we're doing idiotic things. We need you, but we mostly need you to understand the complexity of what we're doing and align yourself with those complexities. So you don't need to be creating new policies, educational policies. What you need to do is to understand the constraints within which we work and support the ways that we can solve the problems that we have. Not a tabloid headline that says the university is, doing X, Y, and Z with scholarships. That is not helpful, okay? Sitting down and understanding, well, how can we create a process to manage the scholarships better? That's the way I want to work with alumni, the Alumni Association. So I want it integrated in a very useful way. I want it mutually respectful, because should not be any competition. Then one of the things that we were able to do in appointing Billy Davis as the Director of Alumni Affairs is to say how important alumni are, and to make sure that every day in every policy we're developing, there's somebody there to say, wait a minute, what about alumni? And we didn't have a strong enough presence doing that, and that wasn't right. So we acknowledge the important role of alumni. We want that to be serious and ongoing, and we want it to be collaborative. And we're very grateful to have it. So I'm going to stop there. And thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Bradford, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Senior Vice President of Business Affairs, the CFO, at this great university. I want to welcome you this morning. It's always good to see alumni of this university. I want to go over some brief comments about the university. First, I want to start with the fiscal health of the university. I know alums are always concerned about the financial well-being of the university. I can truly say that we are sound fiscally as a university. We have adequate reserves. Some might have heard that we have too much reserves, right? I want to talk a little bit about that, right? It wasn't too long ago where Prairie View had very few reserves, and the institution struggled financially. And you guys might have been in school during that time where the university kind of struggled financially. Well, we were able, over time, you do this over time. You don't build reserves in 1 year, okay? This is a consistent pattern of fiscal management, of fiscal discipline that you embark the institution on. We should never let this institution have low reserves, okay? No great university has low reserves, first off, okay? And so we must maintain that discipline going forward. But we are looking at revising our reserve policy. There are some improvements that we can make to this process. What we found out was a lot of departments and colleges were just holding on to money that could be better used centrally to reinvest. Because we're a public institution, we don't have stockholders. So any reserves we have can be reinvested back into the institution to take advantage of strategic initiatives or opportunities that come our way. So that's the benefit of having sufficient reserves. Now, how much is debatable. For a CFO, as much as I can get, I'm in favor of. But there is some reason to that. Another thing that allows us to have a strong financial position is diversification of our revenue streams. The university has many different revenue streams to support its activities and its programs. This is one of the reasons why universities are considered part of the discretionary budget of most state institutions, because they know universities, like other state agencies, have more different ways to generate revenue. Okay? It's difficult for corrections to generate additional revenue, right? Think about it. They're solely dependent on tax revenue. Okay, but a university, and I'll get into some of the different revenue streams that we have. Another thing that helps our financial position is that we do have a strong student demand. At our institution, in a recruitment cycle, we will get over 15,000 inquiries of students interested in attending Prairie View. We couldn't bring in 3,000, 4,000 students, given the current demand of students that seek an inquiry into the institution. So in the future, yes, that growth can continue. Right now, enrollment reached over 9,500. That would place Prairie View the third highest among HBCUs. So it's not that far to go to get to number one. And the largest HBCU is North Carolina A&T, which is around 12,000 students. Given Texas growth, given Houston's growth, and the growth in Waller County, you're going to see continued enrollment pressure placed upon the university. Okay? Effective cost control, that's another key component of fiscal discipline, all right? We try to eliminate wasteful spending, okay? Yes, we want to utilize our resources to invest them in things that's going to give us the greatest return on investment. But we don't want people out there wasting resources. So if you got a travel card, a pro card, we monitor your activity. That's how we control costs and wasteful spending. We have had to terminate employees for inappropriate use of their pro card and travel card. And so that puts that cost control in the minds of all employees, that you will be held accountable for how you spend public funds, all right? Another strategy that we use is in our contracting. We always try to get the best contract for the university. State law requires us to do bidding over a certain dollar threshold. Meaning you have to get multiple bids before you can award a contract. We use all kinds of consortiums to get the best price for the university. We're always looking for the best value for the university. And in terms of our operating budget is well over $240 million. This would place us in the top 5 among HBCUs, with Howard having the largest budget of something like $700 million. Okay? So this annual budget, Prairie View has experienced annual increases over the last 9 years. When I first arrived at Prairie View in about 2011, our operating budget was around $160 million. So you can see we have grown 50% in terms of our budget in just that short period of time. And that's not due to state increases, okay? The state funding has been relatively flat for most of the universities in the state of Texas during that period. This chart here shows the diversification of our revenue streams. I want to highlight that state appropriation represents only 21% of our revenue budget. This funding source has been steadily declining. This trend is not unique to Prairie View. This is a national problem across higher education. There has been a de-investment in public universities across this nation. Okay? And so we must diversify our revenue streams if we want to continue to grow as an institution. And so what are some of the strategies we're pursuing? We want to pursue growth in gifts. As you can see from this chart, gifts only represent 1% of our revenue budget. That is entirely too low. Okay? So that's an opportunity for us to grow. Grants and contracts. That's another area that represents about 7%. That's another area working with our faculty, investing with our research team to strengthen our faculty grant proposals and the like so that we can increase that revenue stream. And then the final thing we're going to focus on is sales and services. This is where the university is able to sell services to the public through our auxiliary operations. You know, so our bookstore that y'all find closed most of the time when you come on campus, we're going to make sure that it's open when you come on campus. You know, those things like that to grow revenue. Another facet of business affairs is to look at how we do business, right? Dr. Simmons talked about making things easier for students. We want to make things easy for everyone. And so we have gone through automation of all of our business processes. On our cell phones today, you can do every business transaction at the university. There's not one document sitting on my desk. When I got to Prairie View, they handed me a folder this thick of items I need to take care of. Okay? And so we can do everything from HR to procurement to budget to travel to grant, all through your cell phone. Okay? We also want to automate our academic processes, working with enrollment management and our student success offices. Degree Works lets the student know where you at in your degree program, what requirements you have missing, what requirements don't count towards your degree. All of this technology is used to educate the student and help keep them enrolled at the institution. Online forms. Before you had to call the registrar to get a transcript. Now that's all electronic. No alum needs to contact anyone. All you need to do is go online to retrieve your document. Then we use the mobile applications. We have a new police chief. He's an outstanding police chief. We're asking all of our students to download a campus security app. Okay? If a student's ever in trouble, that app has a panic button. You push that button, the police will know where you at that very moment. Okay? So it's like having your own personal bodyguard right there with you. And then, of course, we want to use analytics. This is the new wave of higher education. Utilizing data to improve outcomes. Okay, making us smarter. Okay, I just had a presentation the other day to make our bathrooms smarter. Smart bathrooms, think about that. Toilet paper running low. You get the custodian person. I know when the custodian person went into the bathroom. Ding! How many people went in there all day long? That's how far analytics is going.
That's too far.
Some might say, but in corporations, if you go into airports, it's important. How clean your bathrooms are important to customers. Okay, no one wants to go into a filthy bathroom, right? So at least I don't. So, but that's how far analytics is going. Even in sports, right? You look at sports. They know when a player's on the court, he has a +7, right? That means when that player's on the court, the team's up +7. So if you got a -10, they taking you out the game, bro. You need to sit down, right? That's how far analytics is going in our society today. So we're going to utilize that technology to help our students, help our advisors, our early alert system. And so it's just a sign of the times. Okay, just moving. Where did my text guy go? Right here.
Hold on, you moved it.
Go back. The other way. Right here. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see if everybody can see that, right? Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about construction, because I know this is another topic that the alum is always interested in, and what construction projects are ongoing on the campus. We talked a little bit about the new housing that is being built on campus. We also opened this year a new fabrication center. If you haven't had a chance to do so, I encourage you to visit that new academic facility. We have several new projects, the Welcome Center, new UPD, military ROTC, ag business, and And we're also doing work in the Knicks Arena, renovate that. You come on campus, you'll see some new roads, and then we have plans to renovate the old Jones Elementary into an African American museum. Okay, so construction continues on our beautiful campus. This is a picture of our new housing project with American Campus Community. Now, American Campus Community can invest pretty much anywhere in the country they want to. They have invested well over $140 million on Prairie View's campus. Okay? It's been a long time partnership. This partnership was started over 20 plus years ago with Dr. Hines. He was the first in the industry to do this type of partnership. So Prairie View is a leader in the whole private housing for universities. This new facility will be state-of-the-art facility featuring a community center, social lounges, fitness centers, study spaces, over 500 plus beds, barbecue grills, hammocks, gaming stations. Okay? This is luxury housing. Okay? The cost of this project is $37.5 million. Now, some people might say, why build such an expensive facility? Well, this is my take. I grew up poor. So I was one of those poor kids that came from the inner city, and I lived in crummy quarters, you know, where things didn't work, things broke down, things were cheap, right? Well, a lot of our students come from similar backgrounds. And so what we want to do is get them ready for the future. This is what they're going to live in. They're living in what you're living in right now, okay? And so this is where we're trying to aspire them to a higher quality of life. And so, as a result, any new property we bring on campus, that's the first thing that sells out. Does the students want it? So, fabrication center. The ribbon cutting took place on this facility February 19, 2019. This new state-of-the-art fabrication center provides innovative space for faculty and students, allowing students to build and develop and test their ideas. It provides students with a state-of-the-art facility consisting of the latest technology of laser cutters, routers, wood and metal tools, and 3D printers. This is where academic spaces help to enhance an academic program. This is why we do this. Prairie View has the best architect program in the nation, in my opinion. This facility outdoes U of H's and any of the facility around. The Welcome Center is a new addition to our campus and it opened this summer. It provides presentation videos about the university's history and the student body climate. This building has the capacity of accommodating over 150 guests. It includes a multi-purpose space, functional office, meeting room, and gallery room. The new UPD will open this fall. Our police force has been enhanced with the new chief. Today, our police is about 45 strong, making it the largest police department in Waller County. So I told the chief, when emergency happens, you know who to call, right? Your staff. So there's nobody else around to come, right? And so we want to make the campus welcoming, but we also want to make the campus as safe as possible. So I'll be happy to take any questions from the audience at this time.
How much is the new Phase 9 housing going to cost for the students?
The Phase 9 is priced similar to the current housing price, so there's really no major difference in how much the student would pay. think maybe $30 difference, Sam, would you say? Yeah, so it's fairly equivalent to what the other housing costs. It's Paul.
Mark Falls, Johnson Space Center Chapter. Can we go back to that pie chart? I just want to get clarification on that pie chart. So my question is twofold. We're going back to the pie chart. I want to make sure I'm interpreting it correctly.
Yeah.
So my question may be twofold, Dr. Grafton.
Mm-hmm.
Where it says gifts, 1%.
Yes.
Does that reflect the gifts from the National Alumni Association?
Yes, it reflects all cash gifts to the university.
So, all right. So what can we do? So what can we listen, no, here's the question. What can we do? We know how to give, but we just build a stadium through the foundation. So we know how to give. That's not my question. My question is, what channel do we need to give to so that number can increase? How do we get that number increased? Is it through the annual fund, or we just give individually to the annual fund? I would like more clarification on that, because I think we as a National Alumni Association, I think we can exponentially drive the numbers out.
That's my question.
There are two things. Oh. So, you know, there are a lot of institutions in society, but you notice something, and they come into being and they go out of being. But you notice that universities are very long-lived. So our smart alumnus focuses in on that particular dimension of the university. That, possibly 500 years from now, this university will still be here. Think of the power of that. That's an amazing thing. And if it is stewarded well, it'll still have the same mission and be doing the same kind of thing. Remember now, we have universities that are almost 1,000 years old. 1,000 years old. So, when you're talking to people about the difference in terms of philanthropy in a university, you always want to emphasize that your investment in a university goes on forever. It's just about the best investment you can make, frankly, because anything else, I don't know if you're watching the stock market, but anything else, you don't know what's going to happen to your money. I had lunch with a couple of donors in New York on Tuesday, and I wanted to have lunch with them because they have no connection to Prairie View at all. Zip. Just an elderly couple trying to do some good. And so out of the blue, they decided to give Prairie View $200,000 for scholarships. No connection whatsoever. So the first thing is to think about the longevity and to invest in ways that are going to have the best long-term good for the university. And so that means that most of my giving to the university is definitely for endowment, because it will not only grow over time, but it's going to be here in 500 years. And imagine what it's going to be in 500 years. Or, okay, let's be more modest. Let's imagine what it's going to be in 50 years. That's the thing. And so if you give a modest endowment, what it does today is one thing, but what it's going to be doing in 20 years, think about that. So here's what I've asked donors to do, and this goes back to the annual fund. So do two things. Sometimes I would go in and I'd ask for 3 things at the same time, but I'm gonna be easy on you and I'm gonna do for 2 things. So here's an example. Let's say I can see my way to get up to $5,000 over time to give to the university. Okay. So maybe that's where I can start, and I'll do that. I'll commit to doing that over time. And every year I'll pay on that, and I'll get it up to that amount. But here's what I'm going to do number 2 on that. When I get it up to $5,000, that $5,000 will produce $250 a year. Close to it, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to not only pay towards your endowment, I want you to pay the $250 a year on top of that so that your endowment is used immediately. And that's the way I do all my giving. Wherever I give, that's what I do. So I gave to the Smithsonian Museum, and I gave it over 5 years, but every year I give them enough money so that for all intents and purposes, they have the use of the principal already. That's the smartest way to give to the university right there. That's what I would recommend. And the second part of that is an annual fund, so it helps the annual fund, which helps your rating. The ratings depend on the annual fund, basically. So that'll help the annual fund. Also, we want to emphasize planned giving. So I think I've told you the very sad story about my brother and how he won't give his house to Prairie View. I told you that? Yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm working on it.
Okay.
And you have to mention it to him also.
I will.
So the other thing is we have all kinds of assets that we don't even think about. They could be any form of asset. Yeah, have you ever heard this ditty they sing? 1-800 Cars for Kids. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Now they come up with the idea. Most people, they get tired of their car and they're going to get rid of it. You know, if they just give it to this charity, they raise all this money for kids, right?
Right.
Something that you no longer need, that is an asset, you give to the university, okay? Let us worry about translating it into cash. So it might be, I have a piece of land in East Texas that I inherited from my parents. And it's, I think 12 acres or something. I'm doing nothing with it at all. Deer hunters come up there and put up a shack to hunt deer. And that's gonna go to Prairie View. Okay? And Prairie View gets to dispose of it in whatever way it wants. It can hold on to it, or it can sell it. Transfer assets to the university. And if you do that, I'm going to tell you one thing. You see that 1% up there? For most mature universities, planned giving is a major part of every year's income. Then the university may not even know it, but at some point an alumnus has decided that they're going to give something to the university, and it comes into the university, and they don't even know about it. It just comes in over the transom. And there are universities that get millions every year for this, because one of the things is, we all get old, and I don't know, we have different ideas about my children. Oh, sorry, my daughter's in the office. Sorry, Maya.
Don't get it all away, Maya. Don't get it all away.
But Maya, but here's the thing. Children need some money, but they never need as much as they think they need.
That's
right? And so you take care of them, and Prairie View is like another child. So I take care of them. I have a son, I have a daughter, and I have a granddaughter. I take care of each of them, and then that other part is for Prairie View. So that's the way you bring Prairie View into your planning as if it's another entity that you would treat in a similar way. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
My name is Ron Morgan. I'm from the Dallas chapter. When I work for Boeing, I use company matching funds. A lot of alumni do that, right?
Yes.
Staff at the university, are we putting forth an effort to encourage alumni to do that?
Yes.
Yes, the answer to that question is yes. If you know your company that you work for has a matching program, there's some documentation you fill out, right, Carmen?
Yes, we're doing a whole matching gift campaign that you'll see pushed out from the new website that really talks about taking advantage of the matching gifts. We're also looking at alumni that are at the various corporations that have a matching gift program in place, so we can look at it in the masses. That's not only for giving to the university, but also so the leadership of these corporations can see the Prairie View presence that they have on their team, which will also help propel them with their corporate support to the institution. So we are looking at the matching gift because we don't take advantage of it.
Okay, so I have something to add. We won't surprise you. Chief fundraiser. Okay, companies do matching, but they also make huge gifts on top of that. So in addition to just getting them to match your gift, you can ask them about what the opportunities are for them to make significant gifts to Prairie View. Now here's what this picture ought to look like. It should not be unusual for Prairie View to secure a gift of $5, $10 million from a corporation. That ought to be so standard we barely think about it. Okay? We get none of that. If you want, you see, Carmi, if you have any insight into the people in your company who are the best placed to make those decisions, let her know. And that's the other thing that you can do. We have to get into the CEO's suite. There's no CEO in this country, heading any company in this country, that should not receive a visit from me. None. So next year will be about getting in to see the CEO of Halliburton, getting in to see the CEO of Google, getting in to see the CEO of Apple. Okay? That's what we have to do. We have to get into the executive suite. We have to talk to the people who run the foundation of the corporation. And we have to put ideas in front of them and get them to the point where they're embarrassed that they're not giving money to Prairie. Okay? And when you pass them in the hallway of the corporation, you know, you got to look at them and say, yeah, I understand that you're looking at, you know, something from Prairie View. That's excellent, excellent that you're doing that, okay? They need to see that and understand that's the way corporations behave, okay? They have their little foundation, and Texas Instrument Foundation, they give buckets to Texas A&M and to SMU and so on, okay? Every TI employee who went to Prairie View has to be asking Rich Templeton, Rich, I see you're giving money to SMU and Texas A&M. What are you giving to Prairie View? That should come from you. In your corporation, ask. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Ask those questions all the time. So that's, keep in mind, next year, we're on the road going into corporations systematically. We've actually we're hiring someone to help us with that work. There's one other piece that I'm sure you're intersecting with as well, and that is this country is about to see a major transfer of wealth from one generation to the next. Okay? The massive income growth in this country for a certain small segment of people is not to be ignored. And so, if you have, if you're worth hundreds of billions of dollars, you can't spend it. There's no way you can spend it, right? So the way for us to think about this is, if they have money, we deserve it. That's the way to think about it. So I'm busy thinking about how to get to Mackenzie Bezos. You know, she and Jeff Bezos have split up, and she got, what, 140 billion? Oh, yeah. Some of that money is ours.
That's right.
She just doesn't know it yet, but some of that money is ours, because how could she possibly miss $10 million? She would miss it. Okay, her problem is a tax problem.
That's right.
And the only way to help herself is to give it away. So there are two things that we do for them. Talk to your billionaire friends like this. There are two things that we can do for them. Okay, there are two things we can do for them. We can not only help them with their taxes, we can help them with their story. And so when they give, did you see Robert Smith's gift and how that made the national news and people couldn't stop talking about it?
Yeah.
Well, imagine what would happen if they gave $100 million to Prairie View. Imagine the press they would get out of that, okay? It's such a good story for our students to be supported in that way. So I think we have to make the case to these corporations, to these individuals, and to the foundations of what we can do for them if they give us truckloads of money.
That's right.
But thank you all. I'm going to switch out and Dr. Palmer's going to do it. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm James Palmer.
Good morning.
I'm going to share a few details about our enrollment in the fall of 2018, just to give you some details about where we are. Okay, so data from the division. This is what we looked like in the fall of 2018. African American students, about 83% of our population. American Indian, Alaskan, 0.23, very small number. Asian, 2%. Hispanic has gone up over time. We're at about 8.75, and this is one of the largest among HBCUs across the country. International, we've gone down a little bit, but still have many other universities across the country, given the climate in which we find ourselves. Multiracial, 1.42. Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, 0.08. Those just did not declare, 0.29, and white has gone down a little bit because of graduate enrollment, 1.73. Where are they going? They're going to different colleges. College of Ag and Human Sciences has increased slightly. They're at 414. This includes the graduate numbers as well. Architecture is at 456. Arts and Sciences remains the largest college, 1,882 students. Business, 1,336. Education has decreased a little bit, but we are in fact opening up the counseling program again. So that moratorium is scheduled. And we are strengthening the undergraduate program as we work through some monitoring at this juncture, which I'll talk about. Engineering has seen some growth, I think about 10% over the last 8 to 10 years. Hence our conversation about the need for buildings, right? The research infrastructure, the student need is there. Juvenile justice and psychology has remained strong at 982, and nursing, which that number includes the pre-nursing. We have a lot of students trying to get into nursing, 1,488. What are the fastest growing majors? Believe it or not, kinesiology. Where do they want to go? They want to go into PT. They want to go into health. Many of those students who don't get into nursing are ending up in this major. But so too biology. Look at 651 students there. Mechanical engineering continues to grow, 446. And then you have psychology and criminal justice. What about faculty? We've talked a great deal about faculty. Professors, 73, that comes to 14%. Associate professors are 13%. Assistant professors, 77, about 15%. And what I want to call your attention to is that number at the bottom, which is our non-tenure track faculty numbers, a very large number of non-tenure track. This is 57% of our faculty. So to elevate, we talked about this need to elevate the research profile, get the word out about what faculty accomplishments are. We're going to start rebalancing those numbers, right? The intense increase over the next year.
James, may I interfere?
Yes.
They're bringing them up.
So, just to give you a perspective on typical profiles, especially the kind of places that you're talking about that are ranked. So, oh, we're going to talk about this anyway. I was going to relate it to the national picture rather than the people that we necessarily compete with. So, what is considered the ideal ratio of tenured faculty on a campus, particularly one that's research related? 67%. We're at 14.
42.
We're at what?
We're at 42%.
No, I'm not talking about tenure track. You're misunderstanding. The number of tenured full professors is 14%, right?
Yes.
So we're a long way from having the seniority in our faculty. This is, in my view, the biggest problem that Prairie faces. That disconnect between the profile of our university and the profile of a typical university. And that speaks to one of the reasons that we're not getting, in my view, the rankings that we would like. Carry on.
I don't want to make you dizzy, but I'm going to go back a little bit. Close your eyes. We've talked about this in some detail, so I'm going to skip these slides. But the next set of slides talk about concerns that we are addressing head-on in the Division for Academic Affairs. Of course, the probationary status with SAC-COC is one of the most crucial. So I'm going to skip those. There are a lot of strategies that we have incorporated this particular year to address those concerns. We talked about those today. We actually submit a report in September of our progress, and then there is a monitoring team that will come in October. And we have to make our case through that visit that we have addressed all of the concerns. We are undergoing an audit with the state as we speak, and they randomly select a number of files. And we are hopeful that all the things that we have done, in fact, have addressed the concerns for our auditors. We will know more in December. The board at SAC-COC makes that decision to continue probation or to lift that probationary status. And we hope that they will lift that. But we are continuing with our decennial review, which will take place in 2021. There are 73 requirements that we have to address. There are 17 core requirements that are incredibly important and on which there really is no flexibility. But we are continuing with all of those requirements so that we can submit our report in September of 2020. So about a year from now, that report will go in. You have helped us immensely through your feedback. Last year, we gathered some feedback on some high-impact practices, and that feedback was incorporated with other feedback that we got from students, from faculty and staff, and other stakeholders. And in fact, it helped us to decide to bring in Dr. Tia McNair, who came in November of 2018, and November 2018. I'm already losing a year. And we talked about high impact practices and what those were, and which were most impactful for our particular students. So what is our QEP? Well, it's going to focus on some high impact practices that take us into a global arena even more so than we already are. And here is our logo at present. Our acronym is Be Global, broadening global learning outcomes, building academic leadership. And how did we come to this? In large part because of a lot of feedback. Our mission, for example, focuses on outreach, right? We are a land-grant institution. Inside of our mission, there's a statement there about global economy. In 2016, our strategic plan took us in that same direction. The Texas A&M Empower You standards speak to encouraging our students to have social responsibility and leaving the university having understood cultures and being able to understand how to interact with others. And of course, other mechanisms here that kind of feed into this idea of a Be Global following enhancement plan. So we are continuing with this, and we thank you very much for your feedback, and continue to support us in that regard. There's some other concerns that we're addressing. We mentioned this one, trying to rebalance our tenure track lines. We're about 70% non-tenure track faculties. We need to rebalance that number. And if you look at the benchmarking study that we did recently, San Angelo State is at 70% tenure track faculty, Charleston State 76. We are going to make great strides by fall of 2020 in this regard. And that will elevate our research profile, the mentorship that's available to our students as a result. And we hope that it will influence graduation and retention rates as well. Another important initiative is to reduce the faculty load. With high teaching loads, it is very difficult to do all the things that are required to elevate the institution and the profile. So we need to reduce the teaching load. There's been a major investment in this regard, and we are moving from 12 semester credit hours to 9 starting this fall. What that means is that frees up 3 hours of time, that is 25% effort, to work on things like scholarly production, mentoring of our students, looking at our curriculum more intensely so that we can find where the gaps are, and essentially focusing on high impact practices that we simply don't have the time to focus on now. We've also addressed a first stage of salary reviews. And I'm really happy about this. This was an investment on the part of the university to raise salaries for those who have been incredibly productive, but had simply been overlooked, if you will. Maybe the 2.5 or 3% merit increases just simply did not warrant, or the productivity had warranted a higher amount, and so we've addressed that. And importantly here, we incentivize tenure and promotion. Dr. Copeland says yes. When I was tenured, I got $1,000. Other universities say 10%, 15% of your salary would come. So we have incentivized, and more faculty are coming up saying, I want to be productive. I have a new grant proposal that I need to get funded because I want to become a full professor. So this has really caused some real interest. And from folks who have been in rank for a very, very long time. So associate professors, if you will. Another thing that we did was restructured our non-tenure track faculty titles. We had titles that were all over the place. Adjunct assistant professor, visiting assistant professor, etc. And we solidified into a smaller grouping of faculty titles and created a career ladder. So now faculty have something to aspire to on the non-tenure track side as well, so that they can go from lecture 1 to lecture 2 with salary increases and mimicking the dossier review process that we go through for tenure faculty. We are addressing the need for new degrees and strengthening academic programs. Believe it or not, the last academic program that was approved was in 2014. It's a long time ago. We've just been approved for a master's in clinical adolescent psychology by the coordinating board. General studies, this is a new degree that's been proposed, and it has made its way to the Board of Regents at this point. I think they'll decide in about 3 weeks at their next meeting. The Doctor of Business Administration, this is brand new. I see Dr. Caduce is here from the College of Business. That is moving, that is in the graduate council at this point. And we've been told that we are poised for a master's in social work. This is one of those areas that we've been sustained given the growth and given the faculty that we have. Some other areas that are being developed right now, Masters in Natural Resources, Nutritional Sciences is another degree. And of course, we began the African American Studies Initiative, and we started with 4 faculty, 20 of them. I think Melanie's going to talk about this later, but 20 of them have already gone through an intense institute, and they continue to revise syllabi for the fall semester. And we also had about 12 courses approved by the coordinating board for our Global Studies Initiative, so that no student can actually escape the core curriculum without taking some type of global course. So this is important. You may have heard about the College of Education. We are addressing this head on. The teacher certification failure rate starting in 2016 has caused TEA to put us on probationary status. And so we have appointed Dr. McFrazier, who many of you know. He's presented here many, many times, I believe, and he has made great strides. I think in large part helping others to come together through a common focus on strengthening student success in this area. So he's focused on communication, aligning the requirements of the certification degree itself to the courses that are offered, and he's strengthened the internal structures to make sure that students are prepared to actually take the exam. So we've continued to follow our TEA monitoring plans. We're talking more with the College of Arts and Sciences to make sure that the content area is there. We actually hired some new tenure track faculty in the content areas to support this area. And we've done quite a few other things, including a summer program for those who had actually already graduated. We actually paid them to come so that they can give up some of the job requirements that they have over the summer and come spend some time with us to prepare themselves. This is, of course, a huge issue, and I think this is my last slide. The low 6-year graduation rate at 34.8%, as a result of low retention as well. There are a lot of things that we need to do here, but here's one of the stellar programs that we put a lot of focus on, and that's our Summer Bridge program. In 2015, we had about 406 students go through this program, and we have moved that up to as many as 800 over time. What this means is that they have 6 hours of credit before they even start their fall semester with us, so that if they don't do quite so well in that fall semester, they have something to back up on. A GPA that is generally quite strong because they're focusing intensely on 6 hours with a lot of support. And they've got a learning community around which to learn and to grow. Here's some of the data that we've just run. Of the 2015 Summer Bridge programs, the 4-year graduation rate is 25%. Those who participated in that program, 25% are graduating at 4-year rates. What does that do? That doubles our 4-year rate right now, which is 13%. So just getting them on campus, intensely focusing on their development is paying off, and we've been nominated for a STAR Award at the coordinating board as a result. We continue to address faculty needs. We mentioned the Faculty Development Fund. We mentioned mentorship. We just started this program for 57 faculty who have recently joined the university, and they are paired now with full professors or associate professors so that they can proceed and earn tenure as they go through. That's it. Questions for me? Yes, sir.
A couple of questions. I've been doing some research with the
right here.
Occasionally when I have nothing to do, I go to the Department of Labor, right, website and look at the statistics, right? Do you all do that to see what careers at the forefront?
We do. In fact, we just did a market study for the Northwest Houston Center area programs. And part of that study actually looks at the market trends, but also how to distinguish our programs from others.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and a second question is, why don't we have a degree of supply chain management? Because with so many warehouses around here and so much distribution going on, we should have a degree of supply chain management. And I'm very surprised that we don't. I am very surprised.
I'm going to to talk about the new program?
So we do have a minor in supply chain that was introduced last year, and it's already attracted 20 students. Many of them are engineering students.
Okay.
So we hope to grow it, perhaps into a major.
Okay.
Logistics too.
Okay. Thank you.
So Dr. Simmons mentioned the difficulty and bureaucracy, if you will, of new programs. This is one of the ways that we can actually start quickly, start with a minor, because it does not require coordinating board approval, and then watch it grow and move from there. Let me just address something else that was mentioned. The increased GPA requirements for students that will be entering in the fall of 2020 is going from 2.75 to 2.8. It's not a big jump, but it does signal that we are in fact looking at those rates and looking to increase them. Of the numbers, when we looked at the data, only about 74 students who had applied last year and were admitted were actually affected. So this is not going to be a large number, but it nonetheless does signal that we're looking at our GPA requirements.
Question. I'm Dr. Henson, class of 1970. A few years ago, there were issues with respect to students coming in with reading problems. Students were being tested and so forth. My question is this: does that situation still persist, and what is being done about it?
Yeah, good question. About 46% of our students come in with some type of TSI hold. That means that they're not deemed college ready according to state standards. This summer bridge program is one of the most important components of addressing that. So by the end of the summer, they've gone through not only 6 hours of credit, but they're also going through intensive mentoring. They're taking the TSI exam to make sure that they're compliant and that they move by the fall semester into full status. That doesn't mean that everyone makes it, but I think we're down to about 18% at this point.
I also pose this question. Are you at liberty to say, or do you know what average reading level these kids test out at?
Well, we actually performed a core curriculum assessment. And what it shows is that our reading scores and our writing scores are below the national average. So we have to focus intensely, and Dr. Simmons and I have talked about this, putting a lot of resources into writing development. This is one of the reasons that we've created the undergraduate dean's office, so that we can focus on the high impact practices, the curriculum review, so that we infuse a lot of these required components to actually move the needle on critical thinking and reading at the same time.
Thank you. Are there any future plans for professional student career reviews, such as dentistry, law, medicine?
No.
So I know we've had success with the Northwest campus in Houston. Are there any plans for maybe an extension in Dallas, like some type of program? Maybe.
We've talked about that over time, I think for the last 4, maybe 5 years, about returning to Dallas. We need to look at the data and see what we can sustain. Of course, right now, the main focus is getting through SAC-COC probation and focusing on the decennial review. Because if we build off-site, it requires a full prospectus and a lot of other things that go to SAC-COC and of course to the coordinating board here in the state of Texas. So I would say the priority right now, let's focus on, at least the next year, focus on those real needs and then move from there.
Melton, MD, class of 75. Did you also change the SAT and ACT scores for admission, and what are they?
We did not change that. So we only changed the GPA. Now, this is a long process. To actually change admission requirements takes about a 2-year process. That means internally we look at the data, and it means it goes to the it goes to the Board of Regents for review as well. So if we're going to make changes to 2022, we need to start thinking about that now.
Can you give me the SAT and ACT scores?
ACT I think is 15, maybe it's 16, and SAT I think is 750, but I don't know the exact number. Thank you.
Could I just make a comment about an expansion into professional schools? I my answer was perhaps too quick on expansion into professional schools.
I love your jacket. Thank you. But here's the reasons, in all seriousness. We have to get the core right.
Yeah,
We have to do the hard work of making sure that our programs are fully at the requisite level, and that we're serving our current students well. And so I'm loath to think of any distractions from that. I've started professional schools, and I can tell you it takes a massive amount of work to do that. There's the funding picture, which is no small thing. There's the recruitment of faculty, no small thing. I can't even begin to describe what it's like to build a new professional school. It's so massive an enterprise, not to speak of going through the regents and the various entities who would have to approve. And that would take away from really the focus on these wonderful young people that we serve right now, because we're not doing the best for them now. So getting that right is our overwhelming need. And until we get that, and we can say finally, we're doing well by our students, I don't see how we can take on these additional things. That's the reason I said that, just to clarify.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I think some of you who sitting up front can see that I have 19 slides. I promise you, I will move through them very quickly, right? In hopes that I might actually skip over a couple, right, if I'm thorough enough. I want to do two things this morning. I want to give you a little bit of update on what we've done this past year beyond simply deal with some of our housing challenges. I think all of you know that we've had some housing challenges associated, some with the transition of housing to student affairs from previously auxiliary services. But I also want you to know that we've done more than just housing this year, all right? So we are a mission-driven division, and that means that we focus on the experience of our students around excellence and growth. And when we say growth, particularly in our area, we mean development, maturity. We want them to be at a vastly different place when they graduate than when they arrive. Ultimately leading to deep affinity for the institution. And those are the type of folks who sit in this room once they graduate, who become very energetic, engaged alumni, and ultimately give at higher rates. And then finally, prepare our students for postgraduate success. And that's how we define the work that we do, which you'll see toward the end of the presentation. Am I too loud? I think so. So maybe I got good ears, right? At the end of the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about the broader framework that we use to do that work, which is called the residential college model. Three things I want you to consider. I can use retention, I can use the term persistent, ultimately the term is success. I want you to consider one, that we consistently have challenges retaining, persisting, and graduating our students, and you've heard that from the president. You've heard that also from Palmer. That's something that we have to consider in student affairs. Secondly, I want you to think about the level of preparation that our students come in, and the kind of obligation we have in student affairs to do everything we can to make them better prepared, most especially for the classroom in whatever way that we contribute to their academic intellectual work. And then finally, adjustment. I want you to think about the idea of adjustment. And what I mean by that is for all of the previous two and then some, we have to continuously make adjustments. What we know in terms of under preparation, our students don't look like they looked even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so in student affairs, we have to continuously make those adjustments. And so with that kind of backdrop of considerations, I want to share with you the broad things that have governed this past academic year and will govern us in the upcoming year. The first thing that we're working on is to provide our commitment to our students, and that is to provide a world-class student experience for them. Secondly, we still have to reorganize our division certainly that relates to the adjustment, if you think about it, that we can't look as a division like we looked 10 years ago. Because our students don't look the same, higher education doesn't look the same, and most especially those who we produce workers and thinkers for expect differences in our students. Thirdly, improve indicators of student academic and social success. We in Student Affairs see ourselves as co-educators with our primary educators in academic affairs. And so we have some areas that we can contribute to that ultimately leads to improving students' academic and social success. Fourthly, preparing students for postgraduate success, as I spoke about, and impacting. And finally, the wow factor. That's what we're mostly known for, making students have a kind of robust, invigorated experience, and that continues to be one of the things that we're committed to. So those things have shaped the work that we've done this past year. You say it's not loud, it's loud to me. Those things have shaped our work this past year and will continue to do so in this upcoming year. So just to give you, what I'll do now is give you a thematic focus on each of those areas, and I won't be exhaustive. Some of you folks read really quickly, so you're in for some good reading here. And others, I'll just do what is highlighted in yellow. So in terms of our work of providing a world-class experience for our students, this year we launched an effort to improve the way in which we in Student Affairs operate overall. We created a front office for the division, and we improved our partnership with our primary stakeholders, campus safety, ACC, enrollment management, because the work that we do affects their work and vice versa. Secondly, we launched an effort to increase communication, transparency with our students. We recognized right off the bat, most especially it came to the head in the housing issue, that we had a ways to go, or have a ways to go, in terms of the way in which we communicate with our students, ranging from the leadership of our students, student government, all the way to the student body more broadly. And we've taken steps this year to improve that. We've increased our student leadership development activity, as well as improved support for all campus students. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about the ERC, which will bring kind of a point, sorry about that, bring us to a point where we talk a little bit about the challenges of our students. We've hosted diversity dialogues in a way that we hadn't been able to do in the past, and sought to improve our student voter experience. I think many of you alumni know the history that Prairie View has around student voter registration and the broader ability of our students to vote. This was yet another year where we found ourselves really dealing with that challenge in a persistent way. Here we go. In terms of reorganizing the division, we created a student engagement portfolio. A student engagement portfolio is generally that area that focuses on the leadership development, as well as what we're going to employ, which is a badging system. Badging is that piece of the transcript, or that alternative transcript, that is becoming commonplace in the academy, that seems to cobble together the kinds of experiences that students have had that complement the core academic pursuits and accomplishments that students have amassed over a 4-year undergraduate experience. What we will be able to say to our students is, in addition to our students being intellectually astute, our students have amassed leadership skills. Our students know how to put projects together. Our students know how to organize organizations. They've amassed some leadership skills. And that will function in tandem. And so our student engagement portfolio will be primarily responsible for that, pardon me. We've expanded the student health services portfolio. It now includes counseling center, disability services, and an emergency resource center, and I'll highlight that in a second. The title of the emergency resource center, as you can see, is Hilltop Reserve. Number 3, in terms of improving indicators of student academic success and social success, we're launching an ERC, which again is an emergency resource center. This center will focus on the slate of insecurities associated with simply not having enough money. About 70% of our students are what's called Pell eligible. It's used to kind of get an indicator about the overall financial health of your student body. What that also means is they need more money. Simply put, they need more money. And so what we are putting together is a center that houses a food bank, clothing closet, a slate of social services, and sometimes allowing students to be able to take advantage of the social services writ large that they are eligible for, as well as emergency funding. You heard earlier, I think the president talked about students who were unable to graduate merely because they didn't have $200. The national average is $700. And so when you fashion an emergency resource center, your target really is to be able to give students up to $700, knowing that that is the magic number that ultimately enables a significant number of your students to graduate. We are gearing up and we'll be able to do that for our students, to be able to give students whose transmission stopped, or a student who lives off campus who could not make rent this one time, and we can see that coming down the line from financial aid or other vehicles, she or he will be able to make rent. What we know is that if they can't get in that car because their transmission won't get them to campus, chances are they'll stop out. We have to interrupt that and prevent that from happening. We launched a residential college task force. This came on the heels of what I think many of you have come to remember, our challenges around the transition in housing. But the residential college task force is responsible for helping us to shape the broader effort across the institution to transition to a residential college framework. We also created a Dean of Students, and I'll highlight the residential college in a second. We also created a Dean of Students office, and the Dean of Students office is that office that is primarily geared toward removing roadblocks to student success in a way that other areas across the division have not been. It is that office that interfaces with the academic challenges, the social challenges, the behavioral challenges, sometimes the financial challenges, the legal challenges, anything that prevents a student from being successful, your Dean of Students tends to deal with. And so we created a formal Dean of Students office, and some of you know Steve Ransom. He is now our Dean of Students. We launched a parents program. Some of you have already heard about our parents program. You will see early in fall our first Parents and Family Weekend being launched, and we're really excited about that, as well as launching resources on all 3 campuses. So when we talk about resource centers on all 3 campuses, it's easy to understand what a resource center on the main campus in Prairie View look like. It's the place where students will come and understand where they need to go again when they have financial challenges, what to do when I need some advising, where can I get tutors, where can I get a mentor, where can I get anything that's integral to my success. But what we also discovered is that the Northwest campus and the Nursing Center will benefit from the same thing. On those 2 campuses, what we're going to do is kind of a hybrid kind of design, whereby elements of the Emergency Resource Center that focuses fundamentally around financial insecurity will be merged with kind of the general informational resource center. These places don't need to be large, they need to be clear in what they offer and be able to offer that for students. Prepare students for postgraduate success. We hosted our first annual employer retreat. We just finished the retreat, am I correct, earlier this week, right? So we've now had our second employer retreat. And last year we had about 30 hiring organizations who come, and it's a flipping of the script where they really tell us the things that we ought to be doing to prepare our students. And that worked really well. We hosted a job offer and signing day, and that's sort of like a draft day kind of activity, which is really exciting. If I recall, there were maybe at least 400 people in the room. Parents come taking pictures, job recipients, including those who are receiving interns. They get kind of in a draft-like atmosphere, an opportunity where their employer rings them up, gives them a hat, gives them some swag, and they take pictures and they welcome to their organization. And we're launching a financial literacy effort for all of our first years. I think it's very clear why our students need to learn about financial literacy. I don't need to explain that to anyone here. And finally, in terms of theme number 3, enhancing the wow factor for our students. And wow, again, is that thing that I often say is that experience that a student has on your campus where they're convinced that that could have happened nowhere else. No other university could have had a homecoming like that, When you do a wow like that for your students, that's when you deepen the affinity of your students to the university. We launched one PV Unity Day, and that sought to bring both faculty, staff, students, and external stakeholders to the university together, to play together, to engage in a meal together, but to bring everyone together again, just to make a connection that they hadn't made before. And we had a lot of faculty who came out. We had some who rode, we didn't have a bull, we had a shark, right? Who rode the shark, who played in a lot of the activities with our students. We all know about our homecoming. We continued our SPIT speaker knowledge speaker series this past year. And most significantly, we had 4 students who were sponsored by one of our alumni who represented Prairie View and the Honor Flight Guardians for flight number 55. They went to Washington, D.C. with the person who's in charge of our veteran services and represented the university on the national level. And it was one of the most magical moments for those students. And so when you talk about wow for those students, they go and they are honored. They are part of honoring World War II African American veterans. That's the kind of wow experience that could have occurred nowhere else. And then we returned to campus parties. So I think you know that we had a period of time where our parties were moved off campus. And what that meant was that we lost some of our ability to oversee the safety of our students. What we did this past year for homecoming as well as for Spring Fest was to bring those parties back on campus. We worked in partnership with campus safety. We created a kind of party monitoring dynamic, and we were very happy to say that we had no negative kind of activity to take place on these parties. And so, as Corey Bradford said, do more of that. We're going to do some more of that, okay, in upcoming years, because we can keep our students safe. Did I go away? And here's some by the numbers. You can look at those fairly quickly. That's just giving you a broader smattering of some of the work that we've done. I think you'd be surprised to see if you, the bottom right, that we've had over 90,000 visitors alone to our rec center. I can't tell you that I've seen it, but that's significant to me. We've had 106 students who traveled abroad this past year, and we had 3 students who interned on Capitol Hill. Some of the challenges that we anticipate this past year are the ones that have already been brought up, and that is in housing. What we discovered this past December and January is I think 3 things have come to shape our housing experience. I think the first is we don't have enough housing. We have about 47%, we have enough beds for 47% of our population, right? We just don't have enough housing. We also, in that moment, realized that we have to do a lot better in terms of working with our students who reside off campus and the landlords to ensure better housing situations and experience for our students. And then finally, believe it or not, we had not talked to our students about what it means to be on a campus that does not have enough beds for you from your first year to your sophomore to your junior, senior year. Our students had no sense about, well, what might I be doing my junior and senior year from a housing standpoint if I'm unable to stay on campus? And that was something that was made clear to us. So what you will see, and this really answers the question that was raised about our P3 partnership with ACC, what you will see this coming from maybe the middle of September is the standing up of a new housing office with an off-campus housing component that will work with our landlords in the community. We had a meeting last week, the mayor was there, with ACC to talk in partnership about the ways in which we can support the success of our students. It is the case, and we know that the data reveals that students who stay on campus stand a greater chance of being successful. But there are some things that we can do when we have places that hold 1,400 of our students. There are some things that we can do in partnership with those developers to kind of replicate the things that we do on campus, ultimately seeking to ensure our student success. In terms of on-campus, when we talk about ACC, we're well aware of some of the communication challenges. We're well aware of the way in which the UC, which is for first years, differs from the other upper class housing units. And so with the formal, creation of an on-campus housing office, we can better manage that relationship with ACC. Not just the communication piece, but the messaging to students. If any of you had the opportunity to look at the website this year, you saw toward the end of the housing application season, a ticker. And the design of that ticker was to say to students, housing is depleting, so that there's no surprise as we've had in years past when we run out of housing. So students knew that they had to do the administrative responsibilities, or they would be left in the lurch in terms of seeking for housing, because we simply cannot house everyone. That's just one small effort that came or has come about as a result of our doing more work with ACC. You should expect more of that. So I want to talk and finish with a conversation about a residential college. And kind of we're working off this theme at this point for our residential college at Prairie View A&M University, a deeper and broader educational experience. A residential college seeks to, I'm going to go to this slide and I'll pop back up. You see where that yellow triangle is? It seeks to create a collision point for our students, where they achieve that deeper, broader residential experience by intersecting through activities that are generally sponsored by Student Affairs, American Campus Community as our P3 partner, and academic affairs. The goal when those three things collide is to take what they learn in the classroom and provide experiences for them so that they can deepen and understand the work that is associated with being a physicist, if you will. Right? And so in coordinated effort with our three areas, and what we've done there is highlighted kind of some of the responsibilities associated with making this happen, coming from Student Affairs, coming from Academic Affairs, and coming from our P3 partners. When we organize ourselves, this is what we're able to do for our students, so that the learning that happens in the classroom takes a deeper and broader meaning for them. And so we're focused on developmentally, driving a living and learning experience. When we say developmentally, as I said earlier, that means to mature our students as thinkers, as adults, as people who are prepared to engage the world. Living and learning is the living design. It means that it's an adoption of the model that says learning is everywhere. It says that thinkers don't stop thinking when they go back to their residential facility. It says that our residential facility should be thought of as an extension of the classroom and laboratory experience. And so as we press forward in partnership with Academic Affairs as well as with our P3 partner, we will turn our residential facility into classrooms, into learning spaces that allow us to extend the learning for our students. When we say graduate, we believe that as long as, we believe that as long as we do this, we will affect our retention, our persistent rate, and ultimately graduate more students because they see themselves as learners and know how to do it. And ultimately prepare them for global impact. So how does this look over the 4-year period? In the first year, we will have what are called learning communities. And learning communities generally have 2 academic courses associated with them, a first-year experience, and then focus on skills for success. When we move into the sophomore year, we will have them in their learning experience understand how what they've learned in their first year relate with issues of power, privilege, and service. And that makes sense if you think about the experience or the way in which Prairie View has honed its graduates. And then in the third and fourth year, that's when we get into the more formal residential college design that you've seen at some of the nation's more venerable institutions. In these dynamics, what we're looking to do is to hand off residential spaces to the School of Architecture, to ag, to business, and to say in partnership, we're going to focus on these 4 areas of problem solving, synthesis, post-graduation, and post-graduation preparation. And so what you'll see in phase 9 which will come online in 2020, is that in phase 9, we will have 4 thematic living situations that will be anchored by academic programs, where those who are in those majors will focus on those 3 areas: problem solving, synthesis, and postgraduate preparation in association with their majors. Finally, let me just show you this, and that is how this relates to the B Global Initiative that Dr. Palmer showed you. How does the residential college model come to shape the experience of under the B Global Initiative? You can see we start with Panther Camp. We go into the fall semester where they take a course as well as a common read. Then in the spring semester, they take a second course and then focus on country-specific co-curricular experiences, and then the possibility of traveling either domestically or broadly. And this is finally how it will look over a 4-year period. We just went over the first year, but in the second year, as we focus on privilege, power, and positioning, they will begin to think about social problem in the context of a course, service learning opportunities, mission trips, targeted leadership development, and training using social change methods. That comes to define what it means to be a sophomore. You do what we call contemplation. Examine how you relate to these issues in association with your major. Then in the third year, what the B Global Initiative folks have called transdisciplinary global problems, where they focus on major and curriculum specific kinds of items, optional study abroad trip, variable credit, and again, that goes to the badging system that I spoke. And similarly in year 4. So we can take a theme, we can take a set of academic pursuits and map them out over the 4-year experience and have that correspond with the way they live, literally within our residential setting. And that's what we mean when we say a residential college at Prairie View.
We can take one question because lunch is on the table waiting for us. And so I hate for him to leave if someone has a question. Other presenters that were on the agenda, if you're able to return on Saturday after the athletic summit, you're welcome to make your presentations. I know we had 3 additional presenters for today, but we have to get to lunch. So did anyone have a question for Dr. Simmons?
No, he was thorough.
That's right. Yes, you are. Oh, I see someone standing. Are you standing for Dr. Simmons? Oh, okay. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Please, if you would make your way to the luncheon area.